Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's episode, we're looking at the close encounter of Yvon, Vildier and the Harrison UFO crash. I have a couple of great articles to read to you all today, folks, and it looks pretty damn fun, dealing with the UFO question and are we alone in the universe or not? Either way, let me go to share screen and show off artwork from my own upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs, and then we'll have a fun time. Here is the Extreme 90s cover for my graphic novel. I did this cover to harken back to the comics of the early 90s. My book, pardon me, folks, I had to burp there. My book, Scumdogs, is a loving parody of cartoons and comics from the 80s to 90s. When you read my book, you'll be reminded of a kid watching Saturday morning cartoons. The Scumdogs, they're the classic Saturday morning cartoon villains trying to take over the world. Why? Well, because they were banned for pro sports. Let me explain. In the far future where my book takes place, thanks to advancements in magic and science, people can turn themselves into gods or monsters and compete for fame and fortune in super experiments. The Scumdogs compete in experiments held with monsters as the athletes. Yeah, they competed for a corporation known as Scumdogs Experiments Incorporated, and they were known as Scumdogs because they played for this corporation. But they were banned for life for being villains and idiots, and now they want to use their vast powers to take over the world. But they kept calling themselves Scumdogs just to piss off the corporation that banned them. They're led by Death Mug. Death Mug is the cyborg overlord of the Scumdogs. He's the guy with the metal skull mask over here for a face. Death Mug is a parody of various villains from 80s and 90s cartoons. You can see in the way I designed him. For one thing, he's got a middle cyborg face. Face mask that makes him resemble the the middle face of Monstar. Because both characters had a middle mask with a bunch of horns growing out of it, and they're truly transformed cyborg forms. So yeah, but Monstar, who's the arch enemy of the Silverhawks cartoon, by the way, folks, like that villain, he's over the top and arrogant. But if you notice, as I said, folks, Death Mug's face is also a middle mask, and his middle mask, Death Mug's middle mask resembles Cobra Commander's middle mask from G.I. Joe, Rule American Hero. Like that villain, Death Mug is conniving and cowardly, but wants to rule the world as well and will not stop. Too bad he's as dumb as dirt as them as well, folks. But either way, Buick Starpoon, his arch enemy, he's in good company with Death Mug, because Buick Starpoon, though he's the hero of the book, he's just as stupid and arrogant as Death Mug himself. So let me tell you about him now, besides Death Mug being a complete idiot and moron, just as bad as his arch enemy. Buick Starpoon, as I said, is an idiot too. He's the guy with the pompadour hair with the little palm tree growing out of it. Buick Starpoon leads the Wild Rangers, and he's the leader of them, folks. The Wild Rangers are basically my parody of G.I. Joe crossed over with Starfleet from Star Trek. Buick Starpoon himself, he's an idiotic military commander. Think of him like a lobotomized version of Duke from G.I. Joe, one of the main G.I. Joe characters, crossed over with Buck Rogers and Captain Kirk, given a lobotomy and his own given his own oversized inflated ego and a team to lead, and you get Buick Starpoon. Now, he's an idiot and a moron, but yeah, you're going to love him, folks. Now, the team he leads, the Wild Rangers, because they're G.I. Joe parodies, that means each member, including Buick Starpoon himself, they all have military specialties like G.I. Joes. That's basically their special skills and abilities. Buick Starpoon's special skill is that he's a starship captain who leads the Wild Rangers in a battle. Now, all the Wild Rangers, by the way, also wear the same uniform as him. They all wear the sort of Starfleet looking space cadet uniform. See him? Everyone on this cover, they're the Wild Rangers. So let's look at the rest of them now. Over here, this guy with the mohawk, his name's Roadhog. His military specialty is that he's a soldier from the U.S. Army, was transferred over to the Wild Rangers. Likewise, we have Beach Pounder. He's this bald guy with the gun down here, folks. Yeah, he's a bald guy with the gun down here, folks. His skill is that he was once a member of the Marines. Then we have Blast Tank. Blast Tank is this guy with the helmet over here, folks. His military skill is that he's a tanker. In other words, he drives around weaponized like this or tanks. And of course, this cover, you see them all on? Yeah, this cover you see all on. It's one of 3 different variant covers. That means when you can finally back my book, you'll have three different covers to back for your copy of Scumdogs. Yeah, you can choose one of 3 different covers for your copy of it. Then we have Girl Friday. Girl Friday is a female member of the Wild Rangers. She's this woman over here with the short hair. Girl Friday was assigned to the Wild Rangers by her superiors in the Space Forces to basically babysit and make sure the Wild Rangers do their jobs. Unfortunately, since she's basically Dark's lieutenant, she can't really basically order them to do anything. He in return, or should I say, Buick Starpoon and his team in return really hate her because they consider her a real nagging witch. And mostly he just orders her, or should I say, Buick Starpoon mostly order her to sit and spit, causing her to hate him all more. Now, let's go over here and look at Death Mug's henchmen, Murder Mouth and Sloppy. Sloppy is the big fat guy with tentacles growing out of his head, and Murder Mouth is the guy wearing the top hat and leather jacket. These two guys are your classic henchman villains, total idiots but fun to read about. The guy standing next to them is Hair Metal Doctor. He's a guy wearing a surgical mask and wielding the electric guitar as a weapon, along with Miss Bristol Mullins over here, this blonde woman down here, folks. These two characters are parodies of two characters from the G.I. Joe or Royal American Hero cartoon. Namely, they're both parodies of two of their enemies who worked for Cobra, Dr. Mindbender and the Baroness. Dr. Mindbender inspired me to create Hair Metal Doctor here because his costume on the G.I. Joe cartoon honestly made him look more like a hair metal musician than a mad scientist. I thought, why not create a villain who was a hair metal musician and a bad guy? So I came up with Hair Metal Doctor, who rocks out while doing mad science, who invents weapons and machines for the scumdogs that take over the world. He does it while rocking out. And Miss Bristol Mullins, as I said, is a parody of the Baroness. The Baroness was Cobra's top spy and information agent. She was an incredibly rich woman who became a terrorist and wanted to help Cobra take over the world. In contrast, Miss Bristol Mullins was also an incredibly rich woman. She was a CEO she was a CEO of her own company and had everything, but she was bored. When the scumdogs became villains, she decided to join up with them and help them take over the world. Not because she believes in them, but because she thinks it will be fun. That's Scumdogs, folks. Go back and when it's finally finished. If that like them for me, make sure you're still subscribed. And please share this video out. Now let's go over here and look at some Indiegogos real quick. Now, here we have the King Cryptid campaign, folks. This episodic ongoing monster and mystery series follows the New England's supernatural hero, King Cryptid. Every issue is a complete story and is part of a larger continuity, printed in a classic style with glossy covers and newsprint interiors, created, written, and lettered and designed by Peter Schermetti, published by Alterna Comics. In these 5 issues, King Cryptid will be facing, in these various encounters in each issue. Issue 5, he encounters White Mountain Betty. Issue 6, he meets Dragon. Issue 6, he faces Dragon. He meets Winnie the Werewolf and the Cryptid Hunter Victor Lugo. Issue 8, he punches out the Zeta Tikalon. Issue 9, he has to basically fight the Puckwudgies. Okay, you can back these issues for $15 to get issues 5 through 9. I recommend, folks, if you have not backed King Cryptid before, folks, there's the King Cryptid 1 through 9 catch-up. For $25, you can get issues 1 through 9 all together. There's also, this other perk as well for $25. Get issues 5 through 9 together, both signed and unsigned, for $25. And then there's also this $45 perk, folks, where you get for $45, you get all 9 issues together. Yeah. Issues 1 through 9, signed and unsigned, for $45. Not bad. Go check out King Cryptid. It's a great looking book. You can back it for $50 to get these 5 issues, and it's just waiting for you to back. Now, let's go over here now and look at the Blue Bombshell Returns campaign, folks. Now, let's bring this into the synopsis. Hey, comics fans, the Blue Bombshell, baby. This time around, she's facing off against a whole new slew of supervillains and arch enemies, as everybody wants a piece of the Blue Bombshell. New bad guys, Thundercock and Super Tits are looking to make Bombshell regret ever becoming a superhero in the first place. You can back these 5 issues for $25 each a piece. And you can even have basically this add-on cover as well. But let me tell you about these covers, folks. Here's cover A. You can back it for $25. Not bad. I like what I'm seeing here, folks. But I recommend cover B, which is the homage cover, Jim Lee's X-72. This is basically a homage cover, as I said, basically drawn in the very style that was basically the classic Jim Lee cover from the early 90s, X-272. Then there's also cover C and D. Let me show you them, folks. Both covers C and D are adult covers, meaning that girls on the fronts bear their breasts in all their glory. Here's cover C, and if you get the actual book, folks, your cover won't have these annoying censor bars in front of them. So you can basically see what you're getting here with cover C. Then there's cover D, which is another adult cover, folks, which is maybe even better. Not bad, folks, huh? Either way, you can back covers C and D together for $50 if you want to, folks. But if you want to back any individual book, you can back covers A or B for $25 individually. And then there's this Trump Wins variant cover, folks, which is an add-on, meaning that when you finally back any book and basically hit the add-on perk, you can add on this exclusive Trump Wins variant cover for $25, folks. Not bad. But let's take a look at this trailer now. Load, folks, and stuff like that. Just annoying there, folks. Either way, go check out the Blue Bombshell Returns campaign up on Indiegogo. It looks pretty good, I have to say, folks. It looks like a good-looking book. I should have basically done this already. Kind of annoying, huh? This is what you get me a bad internet, so sadly, folks. Either way, the Blue Bombshell Returns campaign is done by Clint Helinsky. Well, okay, folks, that was the Blue Bombshell Returns campaign. It's up on Indiegogo. Go back it. Looks pretty good. Now, let me go over here, folks, and see this. Let me go over here. Let me do this. Go to the news layout. Stop screen. Then basically go over here, and we'll start off with with the first of several articles we're going to read through, folks. Let's hear the claims of Harrison, another UFO crash before the Roswell event. We could start off with this article, folks, or we could use this article over here. The close encounters of Yvon Vildier, another UFO incident with physical evidence. Which one we start off with first, folks? I think I'll go with the Harrison crash. These two articles detail encounters with alien beings that have been happening for decades. This Harrison crash happened before the Roswell event, folks. So this details an event that basically happened well before the Roswell crash and the start of the modern UFO. Pardon me, and the start of the modern UFO era. Sorry about that, folks. I had to sneeze. The claims of Harrison of a downed UFO somewhere on a Native American reserve in late 1944 is yet another of an apparent vehicle from another world crashing here on Earth, years before the more famed Roswell event of July 1947. Moreover, perhaps because it had come down on Native American land, most likely somewhere in South Dakota, the subject went undetected for almost 6 months before the crew was seemingly recovered by a mothership during some kind of interplanetary rescue mission. Okay. That is indeed interesting. Now, Dr. Adley Sixkiller Clark is arguably one of the loudest voices in telling the wider world of Native Americans' experiences with UFOs and alien entities. Being of Cherokee heritage herself, Dr. Clark has heard multiple stories and accounts of over the years, many of which she documented in the book Encounters with Star People, Untold Stories of American Aliens, including that of Harrison. The account we are about to examine is undoubtedly one of the most fascinating on record. If it proves to be accurate, if only in part, it will leave us with further questions about the UFO and alien mysteries. It will leave us with more questions. It will leave us with further questions about the UFO and alien mysteries. I wanted to say that again to really basically hit it home what we're looking at here, folks. A rumbling that shook the entire property. This chapter of this article is called a rumbling that shook the entire property. So when this object hit the ground, it shook the entire property of this guy's home, folks. I guess, Mr. Harrison's home and stuff like that on this Indian reservation, or should I say Native American reservation? Okay, let's maybe call it an Indian reservation. Either way, let's continue and hear his story. According to Harrison's account, one evening in November 1944, his grandfather was at his log cabin. Okay, it was his grandfather's cabin. At his log cabin on their reservation, when a sudden rumbling shook the entire property, even cracking the foundations. He immediately ran outside, not least to check on the now spooked horses. And when he did, he could see a huge dust cloud blocking the western sky. Given that he had no neighbors for approximately 20 miles, Harrison's grandfather was as intrigued as much as anything else. The cloud of dust eventually disappeared, following him, allowing him to see what looked like a small section of futuristic metallic vehicle. Like a small section of a futuristic metallic vehicle sticking out of the ground. That's what you could see, folks. At least that's what, as the article says, what looked like a small section of futuristic metallic vehicles sticking out of the ground is what Mr. Harrison's grandfather saw, folks. I'm trying to basically, I was just having a little fun there. Trying to really make it, trying to get in the emotion that this is something this man here has never seen before. He saw it, this thing, sticking out of the ground. He didn't know what it was. It was just there. He probably couldn't even describe what it really looked like. He might have heard about alien beings before from various science fiction stories, but he probably never thought he'd actually see one, folks. I'm just assuming this man, Harrison's grandfather, may have heard about aliens before, from basically various maybe film serials, or maybe various novels and other articles that were popular during back the 1930s and 40s. So we have Harrison's grandfather looking at this. He could I'm assuming, he couldn't figure out exactly what it was in his own words, because I doubt he was really all that up on what an alien spacecraft would look like if it was basically sticking out of the ground. Either way, after observing this object from a distance for several moments, Harrison's grandfather turned his attention back to his horses, which had scattered in all directions due to the sudden chaotic noise around them. He eventually managed to round up most of them before returning home, deciding he would find the remaining horses in the morning. When he returned outside the following day, the crippled craft remained exactly where it was, and now in broad daylight he could make out more details. And it clearly crashed with what appeared to be some kind of door hanging open on the side of the object. Clearly damaged, he described the object as being around 30 feet wide and around 60 feet long, and a distinct cylinder shape. Okay, so to him it looked like it was a flying cylinder, I guess, a flying cigar-shaped UFO. I thought basically he said that it was basically that looked like a flying saucer. Which is, remember, folks, he said it had a distinct cylinder shape to it. So it looked circular to him and stuff like that. So, it was circular, so it probably was a flying saucer from what he could make of it. Although he could now see what the cause of the noise the previous evening was, he stayed away from the craft for several days. Then, after not seeing any signs of activity, he finally decided to go and investigate it more closely. Okay, I can understand that for several days, nothing had come out, and it doesn't look dangerous. Too bad this guy here, Harrison's grandfather, didn't know anything about radiation poisoning. Because, I have read numerous UFO stories, and I would have been very curious as Mr. Seawood, folks. I've read so many stories about UFO, even though we thought it was safe at the time, and getting something like radiation poisoning from being close to one of these objects. So maybe I want to get close to it. I kind of have no interest in dying of leukemia years later, even if the radiation was very low, folks. This chapter of the article is titled Multiple Surviving Extraterrestrial Crew. So I guess there was still something alive on the ship. So let's read on and see what Harrison's grandfather, what he discovered, folks, as he entered this UFO. By the time he arrived at the ship, it was more than clear to Harrison's father that as well as the craft itself, there were multiple survivors. In fact, although he wasn't certain, it appeared that all the crew survived, with Harrison's grandfather estimating there were 14 in total. Each was between 7 and 8 feet tall and was so white you could see inside their very thin skin. They appeared very human-like, although they had extremely long, slender fingers. Even more remarkable, the color of their eyes changed depending on the light. white. So it sounds like these sound like a combination of both. Well, the tall gray aliens and maybe other humanoid alien folks. I mean, they sound very similar to tall grays, but tall grays are very much like the short grays folks. They have these big black eyes and they have these alien looking. They have no noses and basically slits for mouths. This sounds like these entities had basically. While these things were 7 to 8 feet tall, they had very human-looking faces with eyes that changed colors and very long fingers, like the gray aliens. So maybe they're related to them, or maybe they're a different species. But it does sound like there's a relationship here, folks. Maybe these creatures are also some sort of bio-androids that these alien beings use. Maybe that's why they survived. Maybe they weren't really human, but some sort of biomechanical creations that basically had survived this craft. Either way, it sounds very interesting that they sound so similar to other alien encounters, other alien beings and encounters that we've read before, folks. I'm going to say that these things sound more humanoid, though, because they have human-like faces, even though their eyes change colors. Other alien encounters, than other alien beings like the gray aliens and the tall grays. So I'll say that much. But they sound very similar to them as well. But at the very least, these tall white aliens with these tall whites, as we'll call them, folks, they sound very distinct as well. So let's read on. They all appear to be male, with each sporting hair, various lengths, and each wearing the same one-piece light green outfits. So they all had hair as well. So it's another thing that basically says to me that indeed that they're related to the Pleiadians, because Pleiadians were also tall aliens, but more or less basically around 6, maybe 7 feet tall, and having blonde hair. But these beings, they sound like they have multicolored hair, and they all basically sounded but they still sound very similar to the Pleiadians. I'll say that much. Either way, they all wore the light green outfit. One particularly intriguing detail that Harrison's grandfather noticed over the coming weeks and months, during which he would spend increasing time with these strange beings, is that this suit remained dry even when the figures were in water in the river. Yeah, this one-piece light green outfit, this I guess uniform these alien beings wore, folks, it would basically remain dry in all environments, even when they were in water. In the river, for example. We have previously examined the case of Paul Parada, a medic who found himself treating a very similar humanoid entity in Peru in 2019. He claimed that the entity was not only wearing a one-piece suit similar to those described over half a century earlier by Harrison's grandfather, but it appeared to remain dry even when wet, in the case with blood. Yeah. And these beings actually remind me of those alien beings as well, folks, that Mr. Paul Parada had met. Now, the alien being he met sounded basically like a classic Pleiadian encounter, folks. This tall, blonde alien being, around the same size as this alien being Mr. Harrison's grandfather met. But these beings, they sound very similar to the other alien beings that Paul Parada had seen as well. Because when this alien being, this Pleiadian, left Mr. Paul Parada and went back to his ship, there were other beings that were similar to him, but they had basically blue skin, or basically pale blue skin, and wore the same outfits. And as I said, folks, they sounded very similar to each other, and they were very robotic. They sort of sound like these alien beings that Mr. Harrison's grandfather met here. That's why I said that maybe they were some sort of bio-androids. Maybe they were actually some sort of mechanical beings instead of basically being who might have been basically made of organic matter, but they were still mechanical life forms. Yeah, because remember, Paul Parada's account of this alien being he met, it was very much like the classic description of a Pleiadian. They are tall and they are blonde, but they have human look, but they have normal human-looking skin, either they have normal human-looking skin, meaning that they look basically like any other person. So that they didn't have basically bleach white skin like these figures that Harrison's grandfather saw. So that's why I'm saying that there was a distinct difference here. Maybe these beings are some sort of bio-androids as well, like the way some people describe the small gray alien. Now they're all they're all basically almost like a hive mind, and they follow orders. These beings sound very much like the other beings that Paul Parada saw, with blue skin or maybe whitish skin, like these things Mr. Harrison's grandfather met and saw. So maybe there's a relationship. Either way, Yeah, the Paul Prada, a medic who found himself treating a very similar humanoid entity in Peru in 2019. He claimed that the entity was not only wearing a one-piece suit similar to those described over half a century earlier by Harrison's grandfather, but that it appeared to remain dry, even when wet in this case. Yeah, even when wet, in this case with blood. This is because Paul Prada was treating this basically this humanoid alien being. He presumed it was alien, even though it looked like a human, folks, because it had been hurt. So let's continue on with more of this article, folks, because it sounds very enlightening. Harrison's grandfather looked on at these strange beings for several moments, a combination of awe, shock running through him. Then, however, that the crew members had noticed his presence, and a moment later, right in front of his eyes, they simply vanished into thin air. Probably because they didn't trust him, so they either basically turned invisible, or literally they basically altered Mr. Harrison's grandfather's mind, so he couldn't see them. Basically, think of it like basically that old superhero, or basically that old, 1930s superhero, the Shadow, who says he can cloud men's minds, basically altering their minds so they can't see him. Sounds like what we read here, folks. Either way, let's read this part of the article, a gradual buildup of trust. Now, before we do, folks, let me go over here. We have one watching. That's pretty good. Let me go back over here. I want to see if anyone's watching us over on BitChute. All right, not bad. All right. Do that. Let's get back to the article while that all loads up. A gradual buildup of trust. To begin with, the beings would continue to vanish whenever Harrison's grandfather approached him. However, after several days, it appeared that they began to trust him somewhat, so that they allowed him inside the craft. For his part, Harrison's grandfather already knew who the crew were. They were star people, and he had heard plenty of, there's the old legends of the star people, folks. This is all part of the Native American lore. This is who we assume these people were. He assumed them to be the star people. And he had heard plenty of them from Native American elders as well as from family members. They had, according to legends, been coming to Earth for thousands of years. Over the following months, his father learned much from the members. For example, when he visited them going hunting to give them his catch so that they might eat, he was informed that they only eat vegetation and not flesh. He also observed them picking up rocks and plants as they were collecting them for study. Once more, this detail often surfaces in close encounters with extraterrestrials, particularly humanoid-type extraterrestrials. He further learned that from them that their home planet was in the Taurus constellation and that they were voyagers who had traveled the universe observing life on other worlds. As Harrison's grandfather already knew, they had been coming to Earth for thousands of years, observing, collecting data, and noting changes. At that time, 1945, their craft was one of four exploring Earth, with a fifth, bigger craft orbiting the planet. Of even more interest were the flashing pictures they showed him on a picture machine. We expect that this is some kind of video footage of their home planet. According to what his grandfather told him, Harrison recalled that it reminded him of the Badlands vegetation. Their houses were underground on their world. Water was underground. Nothing was on the surface. According to what his grandfather later told him, on the evening of April 7th, 1945, he witnessed another ship come down on the land where the crashed craft still resided. Only this time the landing was controlled. The object was exactly the same as the one that had crashed 6 months earlier. It was clear to Harrison's grandfather that this second craft had arrived to pick up the crew of the first vehicle. Essentially, it was a retrieval mission. A crashed object that's shapeshifted to look like a big boulder. So the object, the crashed UFO, they couldn't retrieve this crashed UFO, so they basically altered it to make it look like a big boulder, basically shapeshifted into it. I've heard of other supposed UFOs that can shapeshift, folks, like the black UFOs that basically some people thought they were black UFOs, like we have just a regular black UFO, folks, but shapeshifted into a UFO. This sounds, what we're reading here sounds very similar to that phenomenon, folks. So let's read this part about this shapeshifted UFO that was made to look like a big boulder now. Harrison arrived at his grandfather's home in early May 1945, as he did most years. This year, however, this day would not be none like before or after. His grandfather soon told him of the events of the past few months, of the crashed object, a strange crew who claimed to be from another planet. from the planet. Needless to say, Harrison was more than excited to see the object once he discovered that the crippled remains were still on his grandfather's land. By the time Harrison saw the craft for himself, it was clear the crew had embedded it further into the butt, so that only a small section was above the ground surface. Furthermore, although he couldn't explain how they had done so from a distance, even from relatively close up, they had made it so the visible part of the ship made itself appear as part of the landscape. Harrison elaborated that as best as he could that when he was close to the ship, he could see that it was silver, dull gray color, metallic, and had a door. However, the craft literally shapeshifted and looked like a big boulder, essentially matching the desert soil around it. Oh, so when he was close up to it, really close up to it, he could see through the illusion, folks. It sounds like if you basically were further away from it, there was some sort of optical illusion or maybe some sort of hologram generated around it to make it look like it was just a big boulder. But when you pass through the hologram, you could see this object as it really is. Very, very interesting. Now, let me go over here, folks. We have 12 watching. That's good. Let's continue. We have, 14 watching, 15 watching. Not bad. I mean, let's go back to our folks now. All right. There were further fascinating discoveries when Harrison ventured inside the craft. Perhaps one of the most fascinating of these was when he positioned himself in one of the chairs, of which he carried 17 in total. He claimed that when he did so, the chair melted around him, causing him to panic a little. But when he struggled against the chair released it. He tried this several times, eventually mastering technology was at play so that the chair enveloped him with a warm hug and released him when he wanted to stand. Sounds like this is basically some sort of we have basically safety belts, folks. It sounds like these alien beings don't have safety belts. Their chairs mold around them and basically keep them secure so they don't basically get, thrown out of their chair if they crash into the ground probably. Here's this part of the article, though, folks. Further details that show up in other cases. Further describe the walls and surfaces is particularly smooth and adorned with various screens and buttons, some of which had hieroglyphic-like symbols or markings on them, something which comes up more than we might think in close encounters with UFOs. Another detail that often surfaces in such cases is the positioning of a central pillar object, usually in the middle of the craft, and that's exactly what Harrison described finding behind the main chairs. Hey, folks, we read recently more of how there's this central pillar in these crafts that people think might be either the engines or maybe the power generation of these ships. Either way, this, or should I say, a huge round cylinder encased in a glass-like ball. Encased in a glass-like ball. If other accounts are to be believed, this cylinder likely had something to do with the craft's propulsion and navigation. Okay. Maybe it's connected to its power system as well as basically other attributes as well, folks, perhaps. Now, Harrison's grandfather informed crew members, I think all of their possessions and supplies had been picked up by the retrieval ship. When Harrison looked around the craft, the only thing of interest were several clear containers that were lined up against one of the walls. When he inspected one of these, he could see a thick, slimy substance like honey inside, which reeked like a composite, which looked like a compost pile. Harrison wanted to keep one of the containers partly as evidence of the otherworldly beings' visitation, but his grandfather insisted that he leave it, saying that it wasn't suitable for them. Following their inspection, that's good for Harrison's grandfather. For all he knows, this man could have been basically exposed to high amounts of radiation. As he said, this stuff wasn't suitable for them. Following their inspection, the pair left the craft and returned to the house, happy enough to leave the wreckage where it was, hidden in plain sight. However, 2 years later, around the same time as the Roswell crash, incidentally or not, the story took a sudden twist. Probably because people came in to basically retrieve this UFO crash, the U.S. government probably, folks. Suggestions of another UFO cover-up. One day in 1847, out of the blue and without warning, the United States military sent an Army Corps of engineers to the ranch, immediately cordioning off a large section of it. As coincidentally or not, the land that the wrecked spaceship sat up within, they eventually confiscated the ranch entirely as a matter of national security and compensated Harrison's grandfather with another piece of nearby, although it was useless by comparison, according to Harrison. Indeed. Yeah, but they wanted that technology there. They wanted it no matter what. They eventually began a dam building project on the land and created an artificial reservoir in the lake. History tells us that this part of the Garrison Dam project, as well as telling us that Native Americans being tuft of their land, happened more than we might think during this period in history. Well, that's because maybe these alien beings, as I said, folks, these star people have been visiting for thousands of years. And if basically these alien beings had basically left any debris or maybe or other artifacts behind, the government wanted it, so they did all they could to bury these pieces of land or basically get their hands on it and anything on this land as well. Harrison's grandfather, though, believed that the real reason for the confiscation of the land and trying to tying it to the Garrison Dam project was that they had found the crashed object. They had, he believed, either just recovered it and taken it away to study it, or they had hidden it beneath the waters of their creation, away from the public gaze. Whatever the truth, a member of the Army a member of the Army Corp visited his home, and not long after arriving. Among the many questions they asked him, they repeatedly came back to inquiring if he had ever seen anything strange or near his ranch. According to Harrison, his grandfather simply played dumb, fully aware of what the engineer was really asking. Indeed, and good for him. He might have to basically play dumb, folks, because there's a good chance that these men would have killed him if they did admit they saw these star beings. Now, let's read this part, folks. One UFO crash of many. Harrison's claims are intriguing and thought-provoking, no doubt. Many of the small, seemingly trivial details he offers resonate nicely with many other accounts on record. For example, the seat that molded around Harrison when he sat in it, the middle cylinder that was likely about the propulsion system, and even the hieroglyphic symbols can all be found in other reports of alien abduction and close contact UFO encounters. It's perhaps interesting to note, however, that the notion of a dam being created to hide a crashed UFO can be found elsewhere in the United States, following another alleged UFO crash event. This time, according to the researcher Timothy Good, another worldly vehicle plummeted to Earth in Paradise Valley, just outside Phoenix, Arizona, in October 1947. According to the account, the Dreamy Daw Dam was built unofficially, of course, for the express purpose of covering up the wreckage, which it was determined was too large to move without drawing attention. Of course, how true such rumors and claims might be remains open to debate, but it is interesting to keep in mind given Harrison's account. The account is yet another claim of a downed UFO that the authorities were seemingly aware of, on this occasion. After the fact, why were there so many apparent vehicles from other worlds crashing down to Earth during the 1940s and early 50s? Don't forget the 1930s as well, folks. A lot of these crafts were also basically landing on Earth in that time as well. In the 30s, 40s, and 50s, this seemingly was happening, folks. And we have to ask, was this all actual accidents, or were these crafts intentionally done to perhaps give us this technology? Maybe. But it is strange that all these crafts continue to crash even to this day, folks. So what is going on here? I mean, why are these crafts going down? Was it all just mistakes, or is there a reason behind it? Some sort of actual reason that we are getting our hands on this technology? Was it intentionally done or not? As I said, one more time. Either way, we don't know. Let's continue, though, because I want to get to the next article soon enough, folks. But this one's damn interesting. Either way, yeah. What was with all these apparent? Why were so many apparent vehicles from other worlds crashing to Earth during the 1940s and early 50s? Is this still happening today? Only time will tell if any further information or declassified documents enter the public arena regarding the alleged fascinating affair. Indeed, folks, maybe these crafts are basically still crashing to Earth even now. Okay, folks, that was that article. Let's get to this next one. Now, the close affairs of Yvon Vildier, another UFO incident with physical evidence. As I said, folks, people have been having these UFOs crash to Earth for for generations now. And people have been encountering these alien beings. And here we get another one. Yeah, before we continue reading the article, folks, why are these aliens basically pressure landing their vehicles to us? Is there a reason for that? Or is it just maybe aliens are inept and idiots. Folks, maybe there's something about our planet that causes these UFOs to crash. Or maybe it's basically, some people have argued that maybe it's our primitive radar systems that cause these UFOs to crash. Maybe something about our own technology interferes with their technology, just as basically as well. Their technology, their UFOs can basically cause our own cars and other machinery to basically fritz out and die. Maybe something about us back then did that, or maybe caused it. Maybe. Either way, folks, we can basically let's read this next article now, though, because we have to get into this count too. The close encounter of Yvon Vildier in France in the summer of 1975 is perhaps not one of the most dramatic, but it's certainly discreetly one of the most credible, not least as it is one that resulted in the discovery of physical evidence at the alleged landing site. Moreover, the sighting was witnessed by at least two other people from different locations in the region. Okay, folks. The case is little known today. At the time, it gained a considerable traction in the country, with even the local issuing a public statement about the incident in support of the witness. The event remains largely a mystery today, but it shares many details that are found in other similar close encounter cases, both physically and after. Although several online platforms have explored this sighting in the internet age, the first extensive report appeared in the July 1975 edition of the French UFO magazine Le Mérieux dans la Nuit. Let's read this first part of the article, folks, this chapter of it. A strange machine hovering near the house. According to the account, at around 7 p.m. on January 5th, 1975, 12-year-old Yvon Vildier was at home with his parents in a rural region of Normandy at the base of the Turenborg Peninsula. Watching television, for no particular reason, he decided to go outside into the backyard to get some fresh air. It was already dark, so he switched on the outside light before entering from the house. Just as he was about to step outside, though, he noticed a strange machine hovering or resting in a field near the property, approximately 400 to 500 feet away. Vildier stated that initially from the doorway of the house, he could only see a dome pierced by a bright yellow porthole, with the remainder of the machine hidden by a hedge. He continued that he was very scared as he watched the object even more so when it rose into the air only a few seconds later. As it began to ascend, it rotated. It eventually came to a stop around 500 feet in the air. From this angle, Vildier could see the complete shape of the craft. He noted that the craft was made of 3 or 4 separate sections, and that the section that made up the part under the aforementioned dome had 5 portholes around the sides. Yeah, this sounds very similar to other descriptions of UFOs that we've read before, folks. Either way, these 5 portholes were around the sides of this UFO. He further stated that the object seemed to be in the shape of a bowl. That was around 3 feet wide and around 4.5 feet high. The craft got wider and wider, so there was around 50 feet wide at the highest section, just below the dome. He could also make out that the craft had a distinct oval shape, and while it was luminous, it was a dull brown-gray color. Most intriguing, despite its size and apparent advancement, it remained absolutely silent throughout the encounter, which he estimated lasted no more than 30 seconds. Moreover, he felt no heat or other effects from the craft, despite being, relatively speaking, so close to it. Then the object simply shot off into the air, continuing to rotate as it climbed higher and higher with great speed. Within a matter of seconds, it had disappeared from Valdier's sight, the family's barn blocking any remaining view he might have had. He did recall, though, that just before it shot into the air, he saw 2 hatches that opened like aircraft undercarriage, which allowed the legs it had been resting on to retract into the open hatches. So this thing did indeed have landing gear, folks. He called out to his parents, but they didn't hear him. As soon as the object was gone, he rushed back inside the house to inform them of what he had just seen. Yeah, too bad, folks. I mean, that's good that basically nothing happened to Mr. Yvon Vildier here. Now, we have 5 people watching. That's pretty good. We have 15 watching, so we have 20 people watching. That's pretty good, folks. So 21 watching. Yeah. Let's continue with the article now. Let's read this part. It's titled, A Legitimate Credible Witness. As we might imagine, his parents, while not disbelieving him, were a little apprehensive about his account. However, he insisted that he had seen exactly what he had said he had when he was later questioned by UFO investigators. They purposely asked him questions in an attempt to mislead him and to reveal himself to be a hoaxer. However, he stuck to the same version of events throughout, convincing both investigators and his parents of his sincerity. After being questioned by various people, quite literally dozens of times, he eventually offered that he didn't know of any further details to provide you with beyond the description he had already given. He already stated that he was interested in things related to science and was particularly attracted to mysterious flying objects. However, despite this interest, he had little technical knowledge of such things. As well as Yvon, his father, a 50-year-old forestry worker, was also interviewed by investigators. Although he hadn't seen the object himself, he continued that what his son had said was accurate, and that when he returned inside the house after viewing the craft, he was traumatized and could not say a word because he was so frightened. His father elaborated that when son entered the room, he heard him scream several times. He eventually calmed down enough to tell him what he had seen, telling them that he just witnessed a flying saucer. His father responded by suggesting that he must have he had been seeing things, but Yvon was adamant about what he had seen. The following morning, the family discovered apparent evidence that at the very least something strange had taken place the previous evening. So they probably discovered in the next morning probably the remains of the tracks left by the landing gear of this UFO, folks. They probably left indentations in the ground, so his parents knew that basically their son couldn't have basically dug these things. This was beyond what they knew their son was capable of doing. So they knew he saw something, and that what he saw was indeed that basically, and that their son was adamant about what he saw, and he didn't change his story. They believed him that he indeed did see a UFO. Amazing, folks. Now, let's go over here. We have 5 watching. We have how many watching? We have 16 watching. So we have 22 watching. Not bad. Hopefully a few more people come in, folks, because this is a very fascinating article. These are very fascinating articles we've been reading so far. Now, suspicious traces on the ground. Let's read this part of the article. What article now, folks? As soon as daylight broke the next day, Yevon's mother ventured out to the spot where her son had claimed to have seen the strange object. To her amazement, she discovered suspicious traces on the ground later that afternoon. Yevon's father and Yvon went to examine the traces for themselves. They appeared like fuel or oil and had a similar aroma. Upon examining the substance, there was no longer any doubt in his mind that his son was telling him the absolute truth about what he had seen the previous night. He continued that Yvon does not read science fiction novels or anything like that, and that he wasn't prone to making things up. That's an obnoxious thing, folks. Just because you are interested in UFOs or read science fiction novels, people are not prone to believe you because they would think that you made it up. It's an interesting detail, and it's sad there, folks. Some people won't believe you if you just do basically they probably say the same thing that they wouldn't believe him if Yvon here was basically a jokester. They think he was making it all up, wouldn't he, folks? Either way, very strange story there, folks. But let's continue. Unbeknownst to the Vildier family at the time was that another witness from the western side of the town the Vildiers lived on, the east side, had also seen something strange on the night in question. The witness in question, Madame Leclerc, lived around 700 feet from the Vildiers. Leclerc claimed that at around 6:45 p.m., she stepped outside her house in order to get water. As she was doing so, she noticed a fairly intense light resembling a sunset. She elaborated that the light reminded her of a fire because of its color, but as she didn't hear any noise coming from it, she paid little attention, and after around a minute, she went back inside. It was only later that she realized that the light hadn't been the sun, not just because of the time, but because there was light rain falling at the time, and the day had been overcast for the majority. There was also another witness, Madame Regia, who lived just under a mile from the Vildiers' home. She claimed that it was a little after 7 p.m. as she was leaving her stables on the way back to the main house when she noticed an intense, rather whitish light which lit up a large part of the sky. Much like Leclerc, however, paid little attention to it and made her back to the house. And also, much like later, when she heard Yvon Vildier's account, that she reassessed what she had seen. So she saw light as well, folks. All right. That's very interesting, folks. That all these people saw basically maybe not the same thing, but saw it was so similar to what each saw that they had basically distressed that indeed there was something going on. One woman here, Madame Regia, she only saw it. But the fact that it probably was the same object that basically Yvon saw basically probably does made her think that it basically was probably a UFO because of what was going on. She couldn't explain what it was. She only knew it was a light. She probably assumed it was maybe an airplane, but the fact that it was so, and that maybe Yavin and this other woman saw this object as well, made her reassess that maybe what she saw at that time was a UFO. As I said, very fascinating. But let's continue, folks, because let's read this part of the article. Traces in the shape of a U. Ultimately, witnesses were all regarded as reliable, honest, and credible, with even the local mayor weighing in with their thoughts, stating that the three people who told you that they had seen a luminous phenomena are trustworthy and their word cannot be doubted. The investigation to just what had been seen continued. The two noted that the substance left behind by the object, the actual landing site, was a field that was around 300 feet from Vildier's house, near a communal footpath or lane. The traces were discovered around 60 feet from the gate to the field, which was clear from the trees that surrounded it, and as such, made an ideal landing location. Of the traces, investigators noted that they formed the basis of a slightly curved letter U, its outline being followed by a blackish streak that was around a centimeter wide. There was a strong smell. Okay, then. Yeah, there was also a strong smell of petrol or something similar, and the proposed landing location, something which further indicated that the substance was related to fuel or propulsion. Perhaps strangest of all, though, was a single strange footprint that was slightly rounded and around 30 centimeters deep. Yeah, okay, there was a single strange footprint. So there was physical evidence of an actual alien being here as well, folks, but only just a footprint, and only one of them for some strange reason. Either way, investigators also discovered 3 holes that were arranged in an irregular triangle in the center of the U-shaped oil slick. These holes were all of a similar size, shape, and depth, and there appeared to be some kind of black coloring around each one. Investigators didn't, however, find any evidence of burn or smoke, and when the soil was tested, there appeared to have been no chemical change or other reactions to whatever might have landed there. Yeah, to whatever might have landed there, folks. Yeah, they found nothing. Now, explanations put forward that didn't hold the water. Let's read this part of the article, folks. The weather on the night of the incident was checked to see if there was if there had been any electrical storms anywhere in the area. There wasn't, meaning the chances that Yvon had seen some kind of freak weather phenomena could be dismissed. Investigators also examined the records of the nearby small airport to see if any aircraft had taken off or landed around the time of the sighting or on the night in question. However, no aircraft movements anywhere near the time window of the sighting. When investigators spoke with local residents on a door-to-door basis, they discovered that none of them had noticed any kind of interference or static with the televisions or radios on the night of the sightings. Moreover, aside from Yvon and the other 2 witnesses, and no one noticed anything strange taking place, remaining blissfully unaware in the respective worlds. Yeah. So no one had seen anything, folks, supposedly. Although they had explored and examined the case from multiple different angles and perspectives, investigators were unable to offer any kind of satisfactory explanation for the bizarre events of that January evening. The case, though, remains of interest to UFO enthusiasts and investigators and still has many interesting details to discuss. Now, before we continue, folks, let me go over here. We have 16 watching, not bad. Let's see, we have 1 watching. Okay, we have 1 watching there. Let's see. Let's get back to the article that's doing that, folks. Let's read this part. A mysterious encounter that remains unexplained. Ultimately, it will likely never be completely established just what Yvon Vildier witnessed that evening, that cold January evening, 1975, when the young boy witnessed a vehicle from another world, or whether he happened upon a top-secret military aircraft remains a talking point today, almost half a century later. The description of the object, however, as well as how it moved, matches multiple other such accounts from across the years and around the world. Perhaps more remarkable of all, though, is the physical evidence left behind. There are multiple cases on record of a landed UFO leaving behind a thick, black, oily substance on the ground, with some such cases having paralyzed or numbing effects on those who came into contact with it. Interestingly or not, several of these cases have taken place in France also. As much as what was seen. Let me try that again, folks. As much as what was seen that evening in January 1975, we might ask just what the reason for the craft being in the first place. Well, just what the being the reason for that craft being there in the first place might have been. Yeah. Why was that craft there, folks, and why was it seen by these people? Was this craft meant to be seen by these people? We've talked about before, folks, that basically in a lot of these cases with UFOs, that these UFOs and alien beings almost are putting on a show for witnesses. Was this something similar, perhaps? Maybe. Yeah. Why was it there in the first place? Was this some kind of reconnaissance mission? Or perhaps the intelligence was looking to extract something from the land? Once more, questions remain unanswered, at least for now. Sadly, folks, that's what it seems, folks. Either way, we're at the end of this live stream. So before we go, folks, let's talk about what we saw. Is it possible that these alien beings basically are putting on shows that they want us to see them? Was it the same thing that happened with Harrison's grandfather, who saw these alien beings? It was all basically a ruse. If so, folks, why would these alien beings leave their craft there as well? As I said before, folks, earlier in the live stream, that maybe these aliens are intentionally crashing their vehicles and giving us their technology. Maybe in the long run, the thing that happened with Harrison's grandfather was all a ruse to indirectly give this technology to the government, perhaps. Maybe. But why? Maybe they want us to improve ourselves, but they don't want us to think that they're intentionally doing this, yet that they're intentionally giving us the technology themselves. Maybe they want us to think that we are basically taking this technology, using it, and reverse engineering it because we're so smart and good, folks. Maybe they want us to believe that because they know how stupid we are. Or maybe they intentionally don't care that we get this technology, folks. Maybe to them, this is basically like a little better than basically a 20-year-old computer or something. Maybe the actual technology they have, their cutting-edge technology is so beyond anything we could imagine that they don't care if we get this, basically this lamer and basically decades-old technology that they basically left behind. As I said, folks, for all we know, what they left behind might be nothing to what they actually use now. Either way, folks, that's just my idea. Anyway, certainly a very interesting couple articles that we read through, but we're at the end. So please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. The there's misspelled, it's THERE. It's Read Comics They're Bad For You. Yeah. Read Comics They're Bad For You, but I basically misspelled the there in the title of my YouTube channel. The regular there, THERE. So go subscribe to Read Comics They're Bad For You. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're subscribe, leave some comments down below, hit that bell for notifications, hit the part of the bell that will give you all notifications, and please share this video out. Now, folks, please go over and subscribe to Dark Sayings on YouTube and on BitChute. Dark Sayings is like the Art Bell radio show. If you like my show or Art Bell's old radio show, you're going to love Dark Sayings. He does short videos on these streams, but he also does live streams, folks, around 10 o'clock p.m. at night, where he talks about ghosts, monsters, people encountering alien beings, people seeing UFOs, people encountering, basically demons and devils, and even basically having encounters possibly with God. He talks about encounters with people. He talks about encounters with Bigfoot and Mothman and basically reptilians. And basically the gray aliens. And every time you watch one of Dark Sayings live streams, you learn something new about the world of the paranormal. So go subscribe to Dark Sayings on YouTube and on BitChute. Then go subscribe to Robot Co-op. Robot Co-op is a live streaming gaming channel, but the whole show is very much in the same spirit of that classic TV show, Mystery Science Theater 3000. You know that TV show, that guy is trapped in outer space with these two wisecracking robots, and they're forced to watch bad movies, and then they roast them. Yeah. Well, Robot Co-op is like that. They even have their own two wisecracking robots as well, folks. But they play video games. They play good games. They play bad games. They roast the hell out of them. It's like, watching their stuff, folks, watching their streams, it's like being at a party. You sit back, eat something, and drink something, and have a good time watching, Robot Co-op's live streams. And you're going to love their live streams on Sunday and Twitch, folks. They'll probably do one today as well because it's Sunday. Yeah. There's just so much fun to watch. So go subscribe to Robot Co-op on YouTube and on Twitch. Then go subscribe to Stitched Together Picks. Stitched Together Picks is a horror movie review channel hosted by the maniacal cinephile with multiple personalities. So you're going to love his content, folks. They're just so much fun to watch. You're not just getting one character, you're getting a whole lot of them, and they're all fun. So go subscribe to Stitched Together Picks up on YouTube. Now remember, folks, down in the descriptions or in the chat, I left links. I left links to YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch or BitChute, Dark Sayings, Robot Co-op, and stitched together pics. Remember, I left links down below. Yeah, I left the links down below so you can go subscribe well to those guys. I just mentioned, Dark Saints and Robot Co-op, but I really want you to use those links because remember, I have 2 exclusive live streams up that are going to basically, I'm going to do today, folks. They'll be up on Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, and BitChute very soon. They're exclusives. So use those links and go subscribe to me, okay? Because you really want to see the content, folks. They're going to be good. They're going to be great. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining, folks. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great live stream, followed by 2 shorter live streams exclusive to Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, and BitChute. So make sure to use those links and go subscribe to my channels, either on YouTube or on Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, and BitChute. One more time. Until then, folks, as usual, folks, we'll have some more fun with my next live streams, and I'll be back very soon. So until then, as usual, folks, well, yeah, bye. All right. See you in a little while, folks.